now. Yeah. That is so wildly inappropriate.
Yeah. There were even rumors that Quincy had killed her daughter. Like, rumors are just flying. People are coming forward. It's just, there was also, this part's fucking insane, and I hate this part. There was also a lead, big air quotes, lead, to a man in New York City who was a Transylvania alumni. So he'd gone to the school. You guys know what that means. I don't have to mansplain alumni like an asshole.
I love that you caught yourself.
I did. So this man in New York City, not in Kentucky, this man was arrested for cross-dressing. He was arrested for dressing like a woman.
Because, I forgot the year. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, because it's the 60s and everyone was a dick.
Remember the 60s?
Everyone was an asshole. So he was arrested for dressing like a woman because everyone's a dick. Oh, and I literally wrote, I was so mad. I wrote, don't get me started on how fucked up the 60s were and how fucked up we still are.
Yeah, don't.
Don't. So basically this man was arrested for cross-dressing. Is that the right term?
Cross-dressing, like he was wearing women's clothes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Police searched his apartment and they found newspaper clippings from Betty's investigation. That's like it. They were like police were kind of just chasing any lead, quote unquote, they could get. But it turns out someone else from the town had mailed him those.
It's weird. Oh, maybe as a threat or something.
He just had newspaper clippings and they were like, this is a lead. Like they were just grasping at straws. Yeah. There were tons of minor leads and connections like this, but nothing legit.
You have the major leads and the minor leads.
Yeah. But it was like, oh, I heard this guy stole a woman by a tree. He was a strangler. Oh, this guy way over in New York City, states away, had articles. Like it's just, it was one like stupid lead.
The celebrities had the nasal things.
I mean, at least the police are trying.
Yeah, that's true. They were really leaving no rock unturned.
They were not. The murder of Betty remained unsolved and went cold for years. No motives, no real leads, no connections. Well, and like in a lot of cases, rape or sexual assault was not the motive.
Yeah.
Theft wasn't the motive.
No.
Her purse was still there, all her money. What are you really left with on a random killing besides like someone hates her? But
yeah, but it didn't seem like she...
But normally,
had people who hated her.
Yeah, well, and normally if that's the motive, you find that person quickly.
Well, and it usually has to do with like a love triangle or like somebody infatuated, which maybe it was, but then there's usually a sexual assault element.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think it's crazier.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll start here. So then, let me take a sip of beer.
What is wrong with Transylvania College?
They got a lot of nice books. So then 5 years later, after Betty is found murdered, a local drunk, and that's how all their articles refer to him.
Okay.
Every good story starts with 5 years later, local drunk.
Yeah. Good time.
Good times. Local drunk. I feel like I'm a reporter. Alex Arnold Jr. confesses to police to murdering Betty Gail Brown.
Oh.
He tells police that he had been out the night Betty was murdered looking for a place to sleep after leaving his favorite local bar. He said he went to the park first, but he left because there were too many people there. He said he then wandered around on the Transylvania campus, like just looking for somewhere he could sleep for the night, where he saw Betty messing around with another woman. And when I say messing around, I mean hugging and kissing an unidentified woman. He said he walked up to the two girls, asked for a light for his cigarette, and then he said they started yelling and cussing at him, so he walked away. Then he told police in anger, he turned around after the two women had already gotten to Betty's car. He opened Betty's door, so the driver's side, and he just started attacking. The other woman, according to Alex Arnold, this unidentified woman, immediately ran away, leaving Betty and Alex alone. He said that he continued to attack her and said she fought back. He said that he strangled her with her bra and then threw it on the car floor and then tucked her shirt into her skirt, making it a point to tell police that he did this so they wouldn't think she was raped, even though all the evidence would show that she isn't.
But you might not know in the 60s what they could see and what they couldn't,
Yeah, that's true.
Even now, you might not know what they could tell and what they can't.
As soon as his confession hit the news, all of Kentucky is hooked on this case all over again. This case was already like the biggest thing in the news.
Well, and then years cold, and then...
Yeah. But when this went to court, Alex Arnold said he was innocent. Sort of. He said, quote, "I didn't kill her, but I'm not sure of that." But that wasn't the only issue. And by issue, I mean him saying he did it and then saying he was innocent. Like, that's not the only thing prosecutors have to deal with. Not only did Alex's story change a couple of times, and I'll get into that, but all of the facts that he did get right had been published in the paper years earlier. So every detail that he got right, Like even that she was strangled, like the headlines were literally like college girl strangled with her own bra.
Bra found on the ground of the car.
So it's not
shirt tucked in. Like,
yeah. And I think in this, because I know now in a lot of cases, like look at the Bridge case with
the Delphi murders.
Yes, the Delphi murders. Thank you. There's always something, and in every case, there's always something that police won't tell the public because if they get someone, they need them to confirm certain details.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
clearly in the 60s, they didn't do this. They put everything in the paper. And so the only details Arnold actually knew were in the paper.
Oh, well, I'm glad they do that now. It shows that we learn from, we learn as we go on.
Plus, Alex Arnold had been an alcoholic for at least 10 years. So he was not in his right mind the night of the murder or most nights. Like he was literally known as the local drunk. He was drunk every day, every night. He was just drunk all the time.
Yeah, so his testimony isn't reliable necessarily.
But it's my dream.
3 weeks of quarantine, baby.
At trial, he claimed that he was with his aunt on the night of the murder. That's one of his story changes. His attorney, Robert Lawson, who I'm going to talk about a lot, said of the trial, quote, "It was all boiled down to, do you believe him?" And that's literally what the trial is. This drunk guy who 5 years later is saying, I did it. But yet he's a drunk and the only thing he knows is what's in the paper. Like, that's
and then he's saying he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But maybe he did, but he probably didn't.
And that's the trial summed up. Literally, that's it.
They're like, that's all we have. Did he do it or not?
Yeah. A lot of people, like in the public, believed that Alex had just read all of the articles and connected the dots and that maybe even convinced himself, at least for a moment, that he had done it.
Yeah.
So there were people that thought on all sides. People thought he did it. People thought he didn't. People thought he did it because he read articles.
But you know what? What if he did see two girls kissing in a car in that area and then, was blackout drunk or whatever. And then he's like, yo, maybe I did do it because I remember seeing that and thinking that's horrible or, whatever it was he would have thought at the time. And then maybe you're like, God, I must have done it. I saw that. Like,
well, and I'll get more into the two girl thing, but one of my first thoughts is like, well, why wouldn't the other girl come forward? But it's the 60s where you are not gay.
No, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Quote unquote, you can't see our hands. It doesn't
Everyone
exist.
was a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, back in the 60s when.
So this was the big question in his trial. Did he actually murder Betty and remember the details? Or did you just read about it all in the paper?
Yeah.
Another huge aspect in the trial was the fact that Alex made claims that Betty had been kissing another woman when he saw her on campus. In the 60s, this was very much not accepted. Like, obviously, that man in New York got arrested for dressing like a woman, which...
Well, and some people, because I just watched a documentary, which I'll talk about for a moment at the end, but some people didn't even, like, quote unquote, understand that was an option. Like, when they're like, what? People can like other girls?
Yeah.
Like, I never even thought of that, you know?
And a lot of people believed he was saying this to hurt her reputation because, again, you were not gay. It just wasn't...
Well, and it might, back then, if you're a murderer, people might be like, that's some justification.
Yeah.
You might get some people. Yeah, it's not terrible. You might get some people on your side.
Betty's parents denied it could be true. And there were actually, there's these diary entries that police had. They weren't in trial. Like I just saw them in an article, but they had Betty's diary and she talked about boys and all this stuff. And like, I know in your diary, that's where you write your real thoughts normally. But so that was like considered proof that she wasn't.
Sure.
But also, like, gay or not the point of the case. It's just something that people kind of got stuck on.
Oh, yeah.
People in the 60s. People still do now, though.
Yeah.
Police and everyone didn't even believe it enough to follow up. They didn't look for this woman. They didn't really do anything.
They're like, okay, cool.
Robert Lawson, Alex's attorney, said that it wouldn't make sense and this was interesting, too. His own attorney didn't believe it. His attorney said it wouldn't make sense for two women to be kissing in such a public space when it was so frowned upon. Which that makes me cringe to think that.
But also, like, kudos to him being like, yeah, it was frowned upon. They would have went somewhere else.
Yeah. But it's also like 1:00 in the morning or midnight. So you wouldn't think anyone's going to walk up on you.
And she's not at a building she's usually at.
Yeah.
And,
so I don't know.
It's off her own beaten path, so to speak.
I also don't give a shit. Someone murdered her.
Yeah.
And I hate the 60s.
That part's truly irrelevant. Unless there's a girl out there who knew something. But
yeah. Eventually, the trial ended in a hung jury, and Alex Arnold died at 49 in 1980. No one is really sure if he murdered Betty or not.
Wow.
But her story is not over yet.
Oh, okay.
There's one more thing I need to talk about. So there is another suspect that police have looked at in the last decade, like our last decade, like the last 10 years from now.
Like our last
decade.
Not theirs, not yours.
Ours.
Ours.
Stop trying to take our
decade.
Shine, the 60s.
This is our decade.
Nolan Ray George sounds like a fucking asshole.
Oh, okay.
If your name is Nolan Ray George, I'm sorry. You're a murderer. Now 77, like 2020 time. Back in 2010, when he was 67. Back in 2010, he was mentioned as a suspect. So like 50 years after Betty was murdered, the police mentioned Nolan Ray George as a suspect.
Yo, I love that the case is like still going.
Yeah.
Like it was cold for a while, but they're like, nope, we're not done here.
Fucking figure this out.
We're not done.
At 67, Nolan Ray George was a suspect in 7 or 8 different murders, depending on which article you read, in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. He served time for 3 of those murders, which I'm going to get into. His MO, you ask? Strangling women with their undergarments.
Well, that would make sense in this case, wouldn't it?
Nolan was never questioned about the murder of Betty Gail, and it is unknown where he was when she was killed, but clearly his MO matches.
Mm-hmm.
Nolan was an extremely dangerous man who preyed on women with a, quote, Ted Bundy-like charm.
Oh.
It's like it was very easy for him to get women to go with him. All of the women he murdered that we know of were beautiful young women, all strangled with their pantyhose or underwear. So a bra really isn't that far of a stretch.
No, of course not. It's still an undergarment.
Yeah. In 1968, he was arrested for murdering a young woman, only to be paroled in 1981. So not that long.
Don't parole people for murder. Yeah, that's what we have to say to you.
So in 1968, he killed Frances Brown. She was found strangled in her car outside of a bar.
Just threw my hands up.
So he went to jail for not that long. He got out in 1981. He killed 2 women soon after that we know of, after being released.
Yo, stop paroling this guy. He's obviously going to do it again.
Yeah. Police were able to link him concretely to one, the 1982 murder of Cindy Rose, who was found naked and strangled in a field. He only spent 10 years in jail for her murder.
What?
Then in 2011, so recent, he was arrested for the murder of Gwendolyn Perry, who, it wasn't a recent murder. Gwendolyn was actually murdered only a week and a half after Cindy Rose. Oh. So it was another murder from 1982, sorry. But he was finally given life in prison.
Good.
He is suspected of killing at least 8 other women.
Wow, serial killer alert.
Yeah. So he is a suspect or person of interest, but has never been tied to Betty's case. Just a name that's thrown out there, but like in the last 10 years. So 50 years.
It's possible though.
Yeah. Robert Lawson, however, who's Alex Arnold's attorney, does not believe that Nolan George killed Betty. He actually wrote a book called Who Killed Betty Gail Brown, and he isn't even sure if Alex Arnold did it. Like he can't wrap his mind around it.
You know, this is probably the case of his career that he he can't
let it go. Yeah.
Yeah,
and he was a defense attorney. Like he was defending. Yeah. In 2006, police also tested fingerprints of convicted killer Adolf Laudenberg to evidence from Betty's car. So he was another murderer who killed young women around the time, but the fingerprints weren't a match. So again, it seems like 50, 60 years later, they're still grasping at anything they can to solve this. The murder of Betty Gail Brown remains unsolved to this day.
No!
Almost 60 years later.
No!
No motive. We're not sure. Was it really the drunk? Did he actually do it? Could it have been this other serial killer who was killing women? We have no fucking clue. It is technically unsolved.
And I worry when cases are that old, but they'll never get solved. Just because if the evidence wasn't kept up with or it's degraded over time or...
Well, and okay, so, and I didn't put this in here, but I read it and I got so mad. So when they reopened it to look at other people, police found that all of the evidence and everything, except for like fingerprints where they had to test, everything else had been destroyed. They're not even sure who destroyed it, but someone destroyed all of the evidence from her case.
Was it a police officer who did it?
I don't know. It might, and honestly, like from the 60s, it might not have even been
collected or preserved correctly, or
no, it might not have been malicious. It might have just been like,
we don't need these anymore.
We don't need this anymore. Yeah.
We already know that what the bra looked like. Let's toss it.
I also struggle with cases like this where there's like, oh, there's a suspect. He did it. Oh, he didn't. Oh, this suspect. He did. Like when there's so many suspects who could have done it. what if none of them did and we're not even looking at the person? Like, what if there's evidence right in front of our faces that we're not, it's hard when there's just so many suspects.
Yeah.
Because then there's that thought of like, okay, are they just making the evidence fit to someone else?